The Hey Eddie podcast is brought to you by Need to find a secret meeting spot but don't want anyone to know where it is? Call Water Jar Guy Delivery Service. Here's how it works. You tell us where the room is, then your friends just look for a guy carrying a water jar. That's me! And follow me through the city. No addresses, no maps, no awkward conversations. Just follow the jar. I walk very slowly. I make great eye contact, and I only bump into things sometimes. Water Jar Guy Delivery Services, secretly leading people to upper rooms since 33 AD. Service is limited to Jerusalem. Do not ask me to carry anything other than water. I dropped a jar of olive oil once, and it was a whole thing. This is the Hey Eddie Podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. The Hey Eddie Podcast is dedicated to helping kids like my cool cousin Eddie learn about the Bible and learn important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. The Bible is indeed God's gift to kids, a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. On today's episode of the Hey Eddie Podcast, we're going to be studying Mark chapter 14, verses 12 through 31, in a lesson titled The Last Supper. This lesson will teach us that Jesus gave himself for us, and he gave us a way to remember it forever. Our key memory verse is Mark chapter 14, verse 24. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Hey Eddie, have you ever had a really special meal with your family? Maybe it was Thanksgiving dinner, or a birthday party, or just a night where everyone was together and the food was great and you just felt happy to be there. Well, today's story is about a very special meal, the most important meal in history. It was Jesus' last dinner with his disciples before he died. And during that meal, Jesus did something his followers would never forget. He gave them a way to remember him forever. Ready? Let's go. It was time for Passover, the big Jewish holiday when families remembered how God rescued their ancestors from slavery in Egypt. The disciples asked Jesus, "Where do you want us to prepare the Passover meal?" Jesus gave them interesting instructions. He said, "Go into the city. You'll see a man carrying a jar of water. Follow him. When he goes into a house, tell the owner, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room where I can eat the Passover with my disciples?'" Now, Eddie, here's what's unusual. In those days, women usually carried water jars, not men. So a man carrying a water jar would really stand out. It was like a secret signal. Jesus said the owner would show them a large upstairs room, all furnished and ready to go. The disciples went into the city, and guess what? Everything happened exactly as Jesus said it would. They found the man, found the room, and prepared the meal. Jesus knew what was coming, every detail. That evening, Jesus and the 12 disciples gathered in the upper room. They reclined around the table. That's how people ate back then, and started their meal. But then Jesus said something that made everyone freeze. "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me right now." The disciples were devastated. One by one, they started asking, "Surely you don't mean me?" Can you imagine, Eddie? They looked around the table at each other. Who could it be? Everyone was worried it might be them. Jesus said, "It's one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the bowl with me." That made it even more shocking. Sharing a meal with someone was a sign of friendship and trust. To betray someone you were eating with, well, that was the worst kind of betrayal. Then Jesus said something sobering. "The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had never been born." Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him. It was part of God's plan. But that didn't make Judas any less responsible for his terrible choice. While they were eating, Jesus did something the disciples would never forget. He took some bread, gave thanks to God, broke it into pieces, and gave it to his disciples. Then he said, "Take it. This is my body." Wait, what? His body? Then Jesus took a cup of wine, gave thanks, and passed it around. Everyone drank from it. Then he said, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. His blood? Now, Eddie, Jesus wasn't saying the bread actually turned into his body or the wine turned into his blood. He was using symbols to help them understand what was about to happen. The bread represented his body, which would be crucified on the cross. The wine represented his blood, which would be poured out when he died. And that word, covenant, that's a really important Bible word. It means a special promise or agreement. In the Old Testament, God made a covenant with his people using the blood of animals. But now, Jesus was making a new covenant, a new promise, sealed with his own blood. By dying on the cross, Jesus was making a way for people to be forgiven and brought close to God. And whenever his followers eat bread and drink wine together to remember him, they're celebrating that amazing promise. Then Jesus said something beautiful. "Truly I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." Do you hear what he's saying, Eddie? This wasn't goodbye forever. Yes, Jesus was about to die, but he was looking forward to a day when he and his followers would celebrate together again in God's kingdom. Even on the darkest night of his life, Jesus had hope. He knew death wasn't the end. He knew there was a great celebration coming. After they finished eating, they sang a hymn together, probably one of the psalms that Jewish people always sang at Passover, and then they left and walked toward the Mount of Olives. As they walked, Jesus said something else that shocked his disciples. "You will all fall away." He quoted an old prophecy from the Bible. "I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered." Jesus was the shepherd. The disciples were the sheep. And when Jesus was arrested, they would all run away and abandon him. But then Jesus added something hopeful. "But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Even while predicting their failure, Jesus was already planning their restoration. He wasn't going to give up on them. After he rose from the dead, he would meet them again. Peter spoke up. He was always the bold one. "Even if everyone else falls away, I never will." Peter meant it. He really believed he was stronger than the others. He would never abandon Jesus. But Jesus looked at him and said, "Truly I tell you, today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. 3 times? Peter couldn't believe it. He insisted emphatically, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same thing. They meant it. They really did. But they didn't know how weak they would be when the pressure came. So what does this mean for you? First, Jesus gave us a way to remember him. When Christians take communion, eating bread and drinking from a cup together, they're remembering what Jesus did. His body was crucified for us. His blood was poured out for us. Don't ever forget what it cost him to save you. Second, Jesus knows everything and loves us anyway. Jesus knew Judas would betray him. He knew Peter would deny him. He knew all the disciples would run away. And he still shared that meal with them. He still gave himself for them. That's amazing grace. Third, we're weaker than we think. Peter was so confident he would never fail. But he did. We all do. Don't be proud and think you're too strong to mess up. We all need Jesus' help every single day. Fourth, failure isn't the end. Jesus predicted Peter's failure, but he also predicted meeting them again in Galilee. When we mess up, Jesus doesn't throw us away. He picks us up and gives us another chance. Fifth, there's a celebration coming. Jesus looked forward to drinking wine new in God's kingdom. The best party ever is still ahead. No matter how hard things get, remember, there's a future feast waiting for everyone who follows Jesus. So the next time you see people at church taking communion, remember this meal in the upper room. Remember the bread and the cup. Remember what Jesus did for you. And remember, he's coming back, and the party's going to be amazing. This has been the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. Remember that the Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to studying the Bible and learning important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. Today we discussed Mark chapter 14, verses 12 through 31. Tune in soon for another episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, where we'll study Mark chapter 14, verses 32 through 52. Love you, Eddie.